This is a demonstration of Wirecast.
Perfect. Okay, excellent. Good, good. Oh. Oh, weird. Okay, no, I'll try,
This is a demonstration of This is a demonstration of Wirecast.
set that up to, screen there again. Does that look good? Okay. Yeah, I completely quit Wirecast and then I reopened the template I just did. Okay. Yeah, I'm not.
This is a demonstration of Wirecast.
Oh, it still says, yeah. So I see the live. Yeah, it does. It still says Wirecast there. Okay, one sec. I'm at the screen now. And let me know if you're still seeing it. I'm pretty sure I got it this time.
Hello.
The last time it had two separate
Hey,
screens
what's
on
up?
it, and this time it's got the one again.
How'd it go?
So
What did you
I'm
say?
not seeing that. I'm not seeing the
Oh, that's good then.
the watermark kind of
What did
coming
you
through
say?
this time. Perfect. Okay, excellent. We'll get started up.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Heather Voyles, and I'm here to summarize some of the progress I've made on my mobile app, Kaplow, using Ionic. This week, for the most most part, I was focusing on customizing the views and adding a page off my splash page that would allow someone to automatically dispatch a plow, and then using the geolocation simple functionality through the tutorial that Rob provided, auto-populate the form, which is the third step in the app process. Auto-populate the form with the address of the driveway or the parking lot that was about to be plowed. So I didn't get through all of it, but I'm going to show you what I did. I'm going to emulate it, and I'm going to go through the browser just to see if the splash page is fixed. I had broken it right before I came up here, so. But most of you have seen the other two shots anyhow. Okay, so for whatever reason the splash page is still not working. I'm having an issue with my resources directory, and the configuration of the imagery is not working either. They're not being properly resized through the tutorial that Darren shared with AJ. That's working for AJ, but it's not working well for me. Basically, there's a splash page here, and then the splash page sets off to dispatch, and this view is, thanks to Carol, this view is added, and it's essentially clickable. You can see that this is either my latitude or my longitude, because I've just set it up to give me alerts, because we aren't able to auto-populate the form for some reason. But once you go through the geolocation process by hitting that view, these two fields here should populate with latitude and longitude. We're not sure why they're not, but we're figuring it out. And then you can continue to fill out the form and hit submit, and then my next step is to customize all the additional pages and figure out where the form field data is going to go on the plow side, how they're going to get the data, whether it's through push notification or through a text or through an email, so that the process can be tested. So that's really essentially all I did. I shouldn't say all I did, it took a really long time just to figure out those two steps. And then Rob and I spent some time today, but I think I'm going to spend a little bit more time this afternoon trying to figure out why I can't get those into the form field. And if anyone has any experience with that geolocation simple function as it relates to Ionic and auto-populating this form, I would welcome it. Brian?
It's probably because of you're using it in emulation, so
it does it in both ways. It does it whether I can do it on the browser.
No. What I mean, because it's being done through iOS simulator, is that you need to provide its GPS coordinates. So there might be an option inside hardware that says like emulate GPS coordinates, and you give it a set of longitude and latitude, and you should see those results pop into your app.
So I can fill in here a little bit as well. So
okay.
What's happening is your app is actually grabbing the latitude and longitude itself, which we can see by the alerted message there.
Right.
It's just passing it into the form is the last hurdle with it. So
right.
It's not a huge hurdle. There's a little bug in the code somewhere. But once
and
that's
because
there,
of the scope. We think it's a scope issue.
Yeah, it's a small scoping issue. So
anyway, path of least resistance. I went with latitude and longitude because I didn't know what else to do, and I didn't want to incorporate the Google Maps API. I didn't want to work with that, so it seemed like this was the easiest way to go about it, but I just can't get it to display right. So once I get through that process, then I think I'll be ready to work on notifications and cleaning up the imagery, which for some reason is resizing funky. So that's it. Does anyone have any questions?
No, that should be about it. But maybe I'd like to see if you could maybe fill us in on. You talked a little bit, maybe one of the growing pains that you would have this week with learning new material and putting everything together.
I'm still having the same growing pains I had last week, which is largely a function of just a lack of time. And it's the same growing pains I think Seonaid mentioned in her presentation, which is, and Faye today, I have tutorials that I've done on Ionic, and I've got the API that I created through the tutorial that Jeff Anderson did, and then I've got some of that customized. But it seems like I have component parts all over the place, but when it comes to actually trying to figure out how they all intersect, or how to make them integrated, I still don't fully have the visual of how that all works together, and so I'm having a hard time saying, oh, this is what I need to do next.
Okay.
So if someone sits down with me and says, oh, you need to change the controller or the state because of this reason, then I gather how to do it and what I need to accomplish, but I still am just so petrified that one little change is going to break everything else that I did on the API.
Okay.
So I haven't really found any confidence in integrating all of that together.
Okay.
So it's just not fully functional for that reason. But I think all of the component parts are there.
Okay.
Any other questions? Are we doing sad, mad, glad, or?
Yep, absolutely.
Okay, sad. I'm sad I didn't get to see Colin at all this week because he was in Halifax. He makes me smile. Mad. Mad, I think it's just I haven't been able to fully figure out how to tie everything together.
Okay.
And glad, I'm super happy for Colin and Brian and all the momentum that they've been getting with their new startup. And that's pretty cool to see. And I was really happy to be part of the hackathon this weekend, Carol, and to meet Lawrence, who's lovely.
Excellent. Bravo. You're live.
Hi everybody, my name is MacLeod. This week has been it's been a good week. I got my camera functioning thanks to Rob's tutorial, but it also took me away from working on Speakeasy. So now I guess it's trying to rejig the code so that it works with Speakeasy. Instead of using a camera, maybe it uses a recorder, but I'm also kind of disillusioned with Speakeasy right now, so I don't know if I want to actually work on that anymore. So that's kind of where I am this week. I guess most of this presentation will be a sad, mad, glad. Sad, I've been pretty sad lately for a variety of reasons, but working through it. Would like to maybe feel a little bit better, so working on that. Mad, I'm mad at myself for not picking up code as quickly as I want, and I've said this one before, but I've been working with the Angular course on Code School, which has been pretty good, but I still have a hard time picking up and remembering what I'm supposed to do and where things are supposed to be. Also sad that Matt's not with us. Kind of missing him, hoping he's doing good, and sending him good food juju, so I hope that's okay. And he's skiing, so that's cool. Glad. I guess there's been a few breakthroughs with Angular. Picking that up a little bit more, so I'm glad about an emotional kind of week, so trying to figure that stuff out. So yeah, and that's everything right now.
Okay. You mentioned as well that you're having a little bit of frustration because you're not picking up Angular and the code in particular as quickly as you want. Is there anything in particular you find you're having frustration with, or is it just a more general thing?
I think if I were to just write things down, it's a matter of being more self-disciplined with the way that I learn. I'd probably remember things a little bit better. I have a really good memory, but my short-term memory is not the greatest, so I may like come back like 6 months from now and be like, heck yeah, I got I mean, heck yes, I got Angular, but right now it's just not sticking, so maybe I should start writing things down, which I probably should have done before I started the Angular course that I'm working on now, but other than that, I don't know if there's anything else I can do other than ask for more help.
Yeah, don't hesitate.
Yeah.
We'll fit you in. We'll get you all fixed up. Anything if you're having frustrations with anything in particular, let me know, and we can definitely look into it.
Okay.
Okay.
Yep. That's everything.
Okay.
I sure hope that's really pink or I'm going insane.
It's amazing, like, that all of Facebook, like all of these like 20 and 30-year-old Facebook users are
I'll send you the link.
Hi, my name is AJ Fraser, and I'm going to do another presentation on CV menus, because it's just chipping along, just a little bit here and there. I've been doing like some design tutorial stuff, and have gotten a little bit better at it, so I was able to effectively make a raster image into nice vectors. So this is actually scalable, makes some pretty sweet t-shirts. What's up? I'm sick this week, so I felt like junk, so I basically just did design blog stuff, because it makes me feel better. I was able to take Rob's camera stuff and integrate that with my thing, although it's not doing anything yet. I can just take a picture and it shows up. I got a little demo here. This is what it looks like now with its splash page. And you'll see that goes away. You scroll through, of course, you can go and look at the camera. And what I'd like to do eventually is just be able to take the camera and somebody could post an image, but as you can see, you can't. If I go with a home, you can see I've got my little icon here, a little chef hat. That's basically how that works. And that's as far as I go. Still haven't been able to get the post to the API down. So that's where I am.
How do you go home?
On the emulator?
Yeah.
will you be manually updating the menus, or is
Yeah.
that for?
So I mentioned on the last one, it's gonna be like totally non-scalable. So I would like to get it so that somebody could take a picture and assign it to a restaurant.
Yeah.
But then I would also have to do login so that somebody would have like their own specific pictures for that, and then that's just getting into a whole big
If the menu changes, will the consumer update it, or will the vendor?
Once again, this isn't going to be updated or scalable. It's just something I can have in my back pocket. Friends can have their back pocket. They can use it.
Cool.
It's pretty well it.
So obviously you were sick this week, so you had a bit of time. You probably weren't moving at full speed. But what I was wondering was, throughout this week, if you're doing much coding, if there was any particular point where you found you were a little frustrated, or any points where you found you had some growth pains this week or anything. And this is a theme I'm asking this to everybody. I don't know.
Yeah. Like because I went through Jeff's tutorial twice already, and like I wasn't getting it, and then I ended up getting you helped me out with the get request and stuff like that, and then I finally got that. So then I was going through his tutorial again. Some of the pieces were making sense.
Yeah.
But still, like holistically, I didn't get it.
Okay.
I guess that's still where I'm at. And I don't know if it's like I need like one more piece of information to get me there, or I'm not sure.
Okay. If you want to sit down and discuss in particular what it is that you're kind of not clear on, I'll sit down and help you out.
Okay.
Okay. Perfect. Thanks, AJ.
Black shirt, black background.
I know.
You like
very
camo.
Dark.
Barely
You
visible.
can't really see me all that well. Anyways, Faze. Fantastic. As you know, I've been away this week doing a lot of fun things, so I'm actually going to show you what my week has been like. So last week, when we last talked on Friday, come on, I want to do things. My presentation's not working.
It's not.
I'm sorry, Brian.
Okay, we're not doing this Apple TV stuff. I'm sorry. It's really slow, and I don't like it, and it doesn't like me. So,
alright.
I saw it change on your screen, but it wasn't changing on that screen. It's crazy.
Yeah. Like, I just say Apple TV because that's what I assume these are using. If you want to use another method, by all means, I guess.
this way is pretty tricky, so. Okay, so now that we're back, my week. So last Friday, this is my family, Carol. I don't know if you know, but this is Esteban, life partner, and these are our two kids, Charlize and Joe.
That's so weird. He never thinks that those are my partner and kids.
Sorry to say, but they're mine. So this weekend was the hackathon for Code 2015. I attempted to try and help out, but I've been sick this past week, and I utterly failed at contributing at anything on Saturday. So Sunday was my trip down to Halifax, and then we had our pitch competition on Monday to Innovate East, which was very cool pitch competition that was for both social enterprises as well as innovative technology ones, which you'll see, which I'll go into a little bit more detail in a bit. Tuesday was spent getting back to Cape Breton. Wednesday I was just completely dead from my sickness and illness, and then Thursday I was able to get back to work. And Friday has been my first full day of actually coding something, so that's been fun. So So we talked about innovation east. So me and Colin got to this pitch competition, and we were presenting what we had on Phased, and we're pitching to a panel of 3 judges. We had up to 10 minutes to speak, and we had our pitch down to about 3.5, 4 minutes. We pitched based upon using things that we knew, like our stories that we had. Colin talked a lot about his time as the president of the Santa Fe Business Society, and how, because of there was no succession management, how a lot of the plans that he had bringing up the society from 40 members to 700 members, how it's kind of fallen apart now. I went into how, basically, since I now left my company back in Ontario, how the transition from me leaving with all this intrinsic knowledge has kind of hurt the company overall, because I'm leaving with all this knowledge of how their business operates. The judges that we talked to were blown away by what we were actually saying. They were really excited about the stuff that we were presenting. So they sent us this little piece of feedback of what we should be doing. We should be focusing on the core benefits of succession planning, capturing employee knowledge, and then using student unions as an example. They go on to talk about how SharePoint is also something that we would be not really competing with, but is like our app, which we never really identified prior to this, so it was a good piece of feedback. There's also a student business program that allows a loan of up to $5,000 that he wanted me to share, and I'll have links for that for people to check out later. But there's one piece of feedback here that stood out to us, and it was this one. Offering a straightforward way for succession planning at a reasonable cost would be a success. And I was just like, well, yes, that's awesome. But we were on top of the moon at this point. We really thought that, like, all right, they really like this idea. We're going to actually, win something. Maybe we'll be able to take home some cash. But then, no, we the things that won were from a couple of universities, obviously not here, but there was a lobster trap that counted how many lobsters were in a pot. There was a phone charger that would be installed at events and businesses, and then there was actually a pretty cool gas cap that would tell you how much oil to gas mixture was in a tank, so you can figure out if you need to add more oil or gas and so on. So we were a little bit upset, but neither here nor there. We're moving on from that. So what now? Colin's reaching out to a co-op to try and see if we can get a grant from them, as well as going into a business plan competition, which can yield up to almost $100,000. Our MVP is still set to launch on March 5th, so I'm working on making the code and making it actually useful. And so allow me to show you what I've worked on in my past day of doing stuff since last week. So, the biggest problem that we've been facing right now is persisting of data over a persisting data from one view to the next in terms of like what people have filled out in our event creation form. So what I've set up here is actually a pretty nifty way of doing things. It uses ng-route to switch between different views. So if you remember from what I had last week, this is Faye's, and I think it's pretty small there.
It's not funny.
Oh, the demo gods are not happy with me today. And if I can indulge you for one more second. Our events go a little something like this. So you can enter in all the information here about all this stuff here, and then you have to go to the next page. Then you have the event description. The next one is some of the liabilities. Is alcohol involved? Is travel involved? And goes deep into each one of them. So the idea was that because this isn't staying on the same form, these are actually being loaded from different HTML templates, that the data has to persist somehow. This chunk of code here is how I'm saving it. So each template has a this tells you what template I'm bringing in, but then this function here says that when this is going to go away, or when this template is done, go out and reach out to these elements, save their values, and save it to this array, which is declared globally at the top of the actual controller, which you can see up here. But there's some problems with this in that getting element by id.value doesn't work necessarily for radio buttons. So when you have radio buttons, you have a group of objects, and you have to tell what object is actually selected, which one holds a true value in order to get that one out. So I had to create a separate function, which I declared in the scope as getRadioVal, and it's a function. This function, all it does is it takes it takes the parameter of a name, it looks for any groups of radio buttons with that name, collects them in an array, loops through the entire array for the specific notion of, is this box checked? And if so, go in, check, is the value equal to the string of true? Because I can't check for booleans in this. To say if alcohol is clicked yes or no. And if it's set to true, return that value. Or not if it's set to true, return what this value would be. So if true or false, send that back. And then that is actually declared down here in these guys. So scope dot this function, the name of the actual radio group, and that returns a true or false statement to this legal alcohol. Are they doing travel? Are they doing this, that? The idea is with this particular function, if they click yes to alcohol, then another form is going to get injected into the place, so they can actually go into details about what alcohol is being served, if people have smart serve, etc. If they said no to travel, then it's being held on campus. They don't need to fill out the network form for, hey, I'm going to another country. This is all the stuff that I need to know for this. The last part of all this is sending this back to the database, which is yet to be done here, so that if the user ever left for any reason from this experience, that their place in the form filling out stage would be saved. So if they had to close their phone off and they accidentally clicked the home button, their spot in their forms would actually be saved to the database, and they could pull it up later. Carol?
Why wouldn't you just send it to the database like after each form instead of doing, like it seems like you're doing a lot.
Because I need to hold on to the entire bit of information in order to just keep everything going for reasons. So if they wanted to come back, I don't want to go back to the database and have requests pulled down to say like what's going on, because I'm reloading the template each time. So when when they go back in the field, if they forgot something for any reason, if they want to put in more event details, then I can just go in memory and then retrieve that information.
Okay.
Rob?
So you're allowing them to be able to partially input a form and then leave the program altogether,
Yep.
and then come back and be able to resume their form again.
Yes.
So what that gives you is the option of partially created forms.
Yes.
I guess I have actually two questions in regards to this. The first question is, does that mean that the user can have several unfinished forms at any one time, or is it only one form at a time?
No, they can have several at any one time. So the way drafts work in Phase is that drafts are saved to the user and not the society.
Yep.
So the user can have as many drafts in there as they like, but the society won't actually know they exist until they get submitted.
Okay.
Yep.
So in that case as well, say they start filling out a form and then they don't bother with it, but they just leave it. Is there a certain time limit on the forms before they kind of expire and leave the database? Or
The only time limit that exists right now is the time limit of our cookie, and
Yep.
the cookie is set to the max that it can.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Okay. I was just curious.
Ready? Any other questions?
Good job.
Are you gonna keep going with that? Like, it seems like, just with the radio buttons and like the yes and no and stuff, it seems like, I mean, that's a really cool way of doing it, but like, it seems like there must be like a better, easier way.
There is an easier way, and it's called jQuery.
Okay.
And it's one line, but I didn't want to use jQuery for this.
Okay.
I don't want to redefine like the
I still think you could do it easier with scopes, but I don't know how. But I feel like there is like an easier way you could do it where like Cause you can redefine the scope in each, like you can make it them
There still has to be some
isolated.
kind of loop though in order to check the.
But isn't that like notes and notes or friends and friend and friends, where you loop through everything you have?
But jQuery, or sorry, Angular,
It holds it somewhere as well.
there might be something in terms of like the inputs that I'm not
Like,
aware of.
I don't fully understand like the complexity of what you're doing, but when you're describing it, it sounds like hard. Like it seems really difficult.
Yeah.
And I just don't like.
But I have to have some way of like the program knowing what these things are going to be in
Yeah.
the future for us to actually fill in the rest of the form.
Yeah. Yeah.
This is the only way I know how to do it now. If there is a more efficient way, then I will learn it. But it's going to take. I don't want to stop and have to learn that way. I want to get it done. So this is the way I'm going to do it.
100%.
Okay, cool.
You go with
No.
what you're comfortable with to get your MVP out the door, and then you worry about.
Yeah, because like, well, I'm opening this up for like a whole bunch of ways that we can make this more efficient. And I know there's ways that we can make this a lot more efficient.
Yeah, I don't know them.
I don't know yet either. I don't know them all, but like, yeah, there will be ways. And yes, this is a lot of code, and it's really, really daunting. But I'm sure there's an easier way to.
Well, it looks clean. It just like when you're describing it, it sounds like it's a lot of logic.
Yeah.
You were obviously sick this week as well, so you probably didn't make as much forward progress as you probably would have liked. I think there's a few people in that situation this week, myself included.
Yeah, this is only like 12 hours worth of work, so.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, but what I was wondering is during those 12 hours, did you have anything in particular that you found was either like a eureka moment, something you were having trouble with, or maybe something you still are having trouble with, or maybe just like a learning curve or something like that?
It's been a lot of like, how am I actually going to, well, the first learning pain was like, how do I get ng views to work and carry data, and then how do I carry data, and then can I run functions through the data that I'm saving, can I get truthy values from these things. So it's been a lot of small issues that have, been rectified-ish.
Okay.
I think I know where I need to be, it's just that I need to spend the time to be there.
Okay.
To get there.
Sweet. Alright, awesome. I'm good. Thanks, Brian.
Awesome, thank you.
Alright.
I'm Faye McDonald, and I'm here to discuss the progress that I made this week. And I came into this program not because I like code or I'm overly interested in technology. Well, I am interested on like a very broad scale of the communication aspect, but more I was interested in the selling part and business, and there's not a lot of that being mentioned yet. So this is kind of how I feel towards code still, but it's making its way more clearly to me now. Like I get that there's if you were to make a piece of clothing, there's a lot that goes into it, sewing machine, clothing, and like patterns and stuff. And that's the same with code, so I'm learning now. I'm just like, this is a lot for me to wrap my head around still, but Rob was good to explain it, the relationships, because I followed Jeff's tutorial and I had the code there for the API, but then I also had my beautiful, which had the colors and how I wanted it to look, but then we were brought in with the Ionic and how to make it a mobile site, and then I ended up with all these different folders that it was all towards the same project, but I didn't know how they were going to work together in the end. So Rob was good to help me with that, and Carol and Emily and Darian also really good. And I'm getting a grasp like, I see how we're gonna end up with two separate folders, like, in my computer that will work together through DigitalOcean, and I have those things installed, but I'm not great to explain it just yet. And so this is, I have end visions in mind, but getting there is my struggle. And thank you. And I can show you, because I have MacLeod and I do have this set up. And most weeks I don't discuss the code that I wrote because I don't like talking about code. It's not a happy subject for me. But I am making progress. Like I actually am doing a lot more than I let on because code is just not a happy subject for me. So sad I had to resign from some community event or commitments that I made because I was just too torn mentally. And mad that I don't like discussing code, so when people are like showing me new things, I'm like, oh, I'm happy for you, but if they talk about details or ask me what I'm doing, like, that's not a happy moment for me. I'm glad it's Friday and it's good. And I also have, Rob caught me with Rob's code, I have the location and the camera, and I'm a lot more comfortable using my terminal and just navigating around files, and I noticed that too when I went down my own personal MacBook. I thought back to when I was applying to this program. I didn't let on like how little I had to do with computers, but even like installing Chrome for Google, that was like pure pain for me, the thought of just like installing one little thing. So I'm coming a long way too with being comfortable with just navigating around a computer, so I feel good about that. Thank you.
Awesome. So you had already mentioned as well that you were, in your presentation, you were having trouble putting everything together, which is what we're currently working on now, so that's why I didn't. Okay, you're good.
Hi, I'm Seonaid Lee. I'm here to talk to you this week about, I had a happy, sad week. Unfortunately, it ended with the sad stuff, which means that I'm in a kind of a bad mood today. So I'm trying to be positive and upbeat. I had two things going on. I was trying to do this API integration stuff, and I also was trying to get my website built. And so I spent last week I got to this point where I could display the communities, and these are coming from the API on my local machine, and they're in the database, and I had set up the database. The routing stuff was all making sense to me. I had got the API working. I really felt like I was on top of things. And so I said, right, I've got to get users. So this week was focused on marketing and user acquisition, and April's workshop on Tuesday was phenomenal for me. She asked a lot of questions that made me go back and say, what's our core value? What are we building here? And so we've got a whole lot of business stuff that we talked through on the back end. And as a result, I was actually able to build the website. So this is the live website, which has a sales, not a sales process, but a sign up for our mailing list process. It walks us through. I got comments. I got subscribers.
How'd you get that?
What?
Just building it up and stuff?
It was people I already know, but they're organic comments, and they weren't necessarily the people I expected to have commented on it. I said, like, it was really exciting because it's the first time I've had a website where neither of the first 2 subscribers was my mom. So that was pretty exciting. And the things that they're talking about and that my friends are talking about indicated to us that really what we have as a target market are not necessarily the parents, but that the kids themselves need someplace to hang out. And that really pushed us to say we're going to have to be extremely cognizant and aware of security. And so that's our real technical focus for the next couple of months is going to have to be on locking these things down as tightly as we possibly can. So I had a really productive week regarding the business and the website, and then I came back to add new communities, and I added a tiny button up here. And making that button acknowledge its existence took me 7 hours after I built the API and the routes and refactored. 7 hours to get that button to say, hey, yeah, you clicked me. And so there was a point yesterday, honestly, that I'm jumping straight into my sad MacLeod, because when I went to read my son his bedtime story last night, and he gave me, oh, the places you'll go, and I got to the you're going to have sad and frustrating moments, I started to cry, and he had to read me the rest of his bedtime story. So that was like the nadir of the week. So I'm going to just do that as my sad. And then I'm really mad that the technology took all the wind out of my sails, because it had such an awesome week with I wrote marketing copy, and I had great plans, and it wasn't a hard thing, it wasn't a conceptual thing, it was the stupidest little, there's a thing in curling called a flob, which is a fucking little outside biter that just nicks your rock on the way past. It was one of those.
I believe that's actually the description in the dictionary too.
It took me down. It was a stupid trivial bug that ruined like a whole day of my life. So that I was angry about. But I'm really happy that I got subscribers and I got this website built, because it's got a lot. Like, I wrote thousands of words of marketing copy this week. So, which also had the word fucking in it, because I used Amy Hoy's book, Just Fucking Ship, which is like a get from here to there process without getting bogged down in the details. So I can highly recommend that. It's only $19.
You're going to convince parents to let you use their children.
There's separate parts of the website. There's high security clean parts of the website, and there's the parts for the parents to go to themselves.
So what specifically caused your problem with the button not acknowledging?
One of the tutorials that I was using, instead of having the NG click on button, had the NG click on the ion icon thing.
Oh.
And, or at least that's what I did with it in the tutorial. Like, that, I have to go back and see if he actually did that in the tutorial, because I thought I had cut and paste like his exact code. Anyway, you can't click on the icon thing inside. You have to click on the button, and it like
that's a really hard one to see too.
It doesn't do anything.
Yeah.
It does nothing. It gives you no feedback. You get no errors. Nothing happens.
Yeah.
So.
Well.
So
you resolved it though. That's the main thing. I'm not going to ask you about your growing pain this week, because I think you already mentioned it to us. No, we got to get you on more Fridays where you're dancing. You were dancing last Friday.
Was I dancing last Friday? Oh, I don't know. Anyway.
I don't know.
I don't know. I wrote a lot of stuff this week. I have a lot.
I always say some weeks you kick the code's butt, and other weeks the code kicks your butt.
Some week the
So-
bar
The butt
gets
of the
you.
code.
Comes
Alright.
with the territory. Good job.
Thanks.
Good to go.
Hey everybody, my name's Florian. I'm gonna share with you guys how my week went. Started out on Monday with a chat with Gavin about what I was gonna look at doing this week, and my main thoughts on the last couple weeks and like leading into this was that I was producing a lot of kind of one-off apps. I was learning something new, creating a little BS app that would do something with that function and then abandoning it because I didn't really have any idea that I wanted to run with. So Gavin suggested that I maybe come back to like the sports chat idea I had in the fall because there's nothing really like that out there that's useful right now. So I spent Tuesday rest of Monday and Tuesday kind of putting together what that could be and what kind of features I want to have and looking around to see like if there was anything already competing in it and stuff like that, and eventually ended up choosing not to do it. I came up with a better idea. That I haven't gotten anywhere on the new idea yet, so I'll put that on the back burner for now. But anyways, the main point of all this is that Gavin suggested, well, a good place to start would be to learn Passport and Facebook logins and just get my node authentication stuff done. So Wednesday, Thursday, and most of today, I did this tutorial that Carol had passed to me. It's on Scotch.io, and it was probably the worst 3 days of like the last month or so. I can walk you through how awful it was because Carol went right through it and had no trouble, and I just got caught up on every dumb thing possible. So, starting off, application structure. This is the file structure for what you're supposed to do, and it looks pretty straightforward, except for this little models thing here, which is a little bit longer than the file, but not as long as some of the other things. So, is that a file, or is that like an actual text file, or what? So, I originally had it as a text file. That messed everything up. And then I realized, wait a minute, this is supposed to be a folder, and user.js is supposed to be in that folder. So then, my server script fell out because the file path was wrong, and I had no idea why. I eventually got that all figured out, and then I got into my packages. So here's the JSON data right here, and this is all the stuff that we need to complete the tutorial. So I worked on that, and then the instructions say, alright, npm install, and with all our packages ready to go. Well, mine weren't ready to go, and however I read this line, I was thinking, do I have to install all of these? News to me that when I just put this all in a JSON thing and then go to my command line and put npm install, it will automatically go through and do everything. So that was a good 2.5 hours of my time. So then I got into this, setting up my server.js. I had actually gotten a bit ahead, and then they started talking about using this thing called NodeMon. And basically what it does is like auto refreshes your server every time you make changes so that you don't have to go back, Control-C, node, server, whatever. I figured I didn't want that to that's something you install globally, and I didn't want to use that all the time, so I could deal with the Control-C-ing a lot, so I just skipped that. That caused some confusion later down the road. Okay, so then next step was to set up the MongoDB. You had to go to this site called modulus.io, which was pretty cool. I don't know if you guys have ever checked it out before, but it's pretty straightforward. You set up your account and you can set up your Mongo database. So my first mistake is I made the assumption that the account I made for the site and the login information for my database were the same, but they weren't. Even though I made them the same, I called it the same name and the same password, it wasn't actually the same. So that had me hung up for a while, but not nearly as much as realizing that this little guy right here, the user and password, isn't actually anything. That's a placekeeper where I'm supposed to actually put in my username and password. That was a good hour of fun before I realized that. That was before I even got into the confusion between my account and my database login. So next I got into routing, which was pretty cool. I took the time to see what this stuff was doing. It seemed to work until I got to views. So for views I was using an EJS file, which is embedded JavaScript. And the number one thing I noticed was that when I, this is all just a copy and paste tutorial. I'm taking this code and putting it in, just trying to get it set up. It was just coming up as plain white text, and I didn't know if I was doing something wrong. I talked to Jeff Anderson a bit about it, and I realized that that was just sublime text. That was actually no error at all. It was just sublime text, didn't recognize it because it's a template for JavaScript. So I got that hooked up, and that was fine. But I got into this problem with the server-side code where it was crashing because of this thing here. And it was reading that like an object for some reason. So what I did to solve it is I thought maybe I'll just invent my own language and put a comma in between there because that seems like what should happen. And it worked. And it was awesome. Until I finally got my views right, got my database, everything straightened out. Then it wouldn't work because that comma was there. And I discovered this by uploading everything to GitHub, sending it to Jeff. And he got back to me and said, why is there a comma right there? I said, I just put that in because it was way before. So anyways, took that out. And then finally I got to this, when I opened my site, it's node authentication, just whatever. So the next steps of the tutorial are just all your forms, your login form, which looks like this, your sign up form, just setting this all up. And it's all just copy and pasting and this kind of stuff. And then you get into your user models. If you guys haven't done this yet, I'm breezing through it because I'm not sure where everybody's at with this stuff. But anyways, I got down to testing signup, which is this again. And I ran into the same problem with it was reading this the wrong way and it wouldn't work. And I tried everything because I knew that this was the right way. And after discussing it with Carol, I said, you know what, just for fun, let's put a comma in between these two things, and all of a sudden it worked perfectly. And so now I'm at the point, it's not actually sending anything to my database. I'm kind of stuck here, and it looks like the page keeps going. There's only really 2 or 3 steps left. That's where I'm stuck at. It's not like sending to my database and there's something wrong, and I'm sure it's centered in on that comma that I just inserted there that somehow plugged the leak in all of this. But yeah, that's where I'm at now, and that brings me up to this presentation. So I'm gonna keep going with that. I guess looking forward in the future, once I get this login stuff mastered, all I want to do next, starting out, is just make a simple chat application, just a simple mobile chat application, have users, have them be able to send messages back and forth, and then I'll explain on that with this idea that I'm still kind of working out. So that's where I'm at now.
Yeah, sweet, excellent. Very good. It seems you're still kind of fighting through that stuff. If you want to sit down and take a look.
Yeah.
So we can look at where you're at.
Yeah.
I find it very odd that a comma is the problem.
I know it. Well, it looked like a place where there should be a comma, and it had worked. And then when I changed something else, it was the problem. And then it was a problem again. And then I fixed it. And then I put something else in, and it's
very
rather than building up a stack, it's leaning to one side and leaning to it was just an awful process. And I don't know, how long did it take you to do? A day?
Yeah, like this tutorial
like
didn't
an
take me so long,
afternoon.
but I promise, like the passport shit took me forever. Like
Yeah.
2 weeks.
Okay.
Like Rob can tell you that there was
I
a
mean,
lot of
I'm
passport
comfortable-
discussions that happened. Yeah.
I'm comfortable with Angular and like I can read this stuff and see what it's trying to do. It's just all these little weird things that for some reason.
But that's sweet that you
all
know about
happen.
npm install now.
Yeah, I
It's
didn't
like a
know that
huge
till
time
this
saver.
week.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good.
Oh, and sad, mad, glad. I don't really have a sad, mad, glad, but a point I wanted to make is I think we would all benefit from being here in the room a lot more. Feels kind of hypocritical of me to say, especially this week, because I've been coming in later in the mornings. But I am still here like every day, and it like the last couple of weeks, it's been deserted, and like I think.
Alright, you're live.
Alright, hi guys, I'm Louie. I had a shitty week, and so I spent much of my time chilling with some red pandas on the internet. So last week, I felt like I'd gotten a lot accomplished similar to Shona. I felt like I was understanding how things were going and how things were interacting and what my pages were doing. So this week I was a little bit cocky and I was like, oh, I'm going to do this, this, and this, and I wrote this huge list, and I didn't do any of it. I broke all of my stuff, and I'm pretty much moved 2 steps backwards. Where I'm caught up right now is sending post requests. I can get stuff from my API just fine. Posting to it is not cool. It just doesn't want to. Similarly, so here you can see like I have these photos and it clearly says like I've got photo IDs, it knows where it wants to be, and if I click on it you can see that it changes up here. But in my console it tells me that I have no access to it because it's undefined. So yes, it's here. So that's like some binding data that I believe has to do with, I don't know, ng-click, ng-model, something with Angular that doesn't appreciate me in some way. Also, I have made this cool little like pop-up, and I can like upload a file, and when I go to save it, well, it probably will just break because I've thrown everything into the save function possible. But yeah, it says that it's posting it and it says that it's saving it, but that is undefined, and I think that's because it's a file and not text, and that's
tripping up something somewhere. Like, I'm not exactly sure where my problems are, I just know that I have them. And that is what I've been working on this week. I decided that because I've had these type of kind of, I think, basic problems, with my understanding of how Angular's connecting to my API, I've gone back and I'm doing the Shaping Up with Angular, I think it is, tutorial on Code School, which is both good and bad. I talked to Jake a bit about this week, but it's good in that, like, it takes you through, like, a little project, but it's bad because Ionic is just enough different that it's confusing. So, like, scoping is a bit different, or it's not different, but I don't know how to use it in the same way, and so I feel like I need to just kind of, like, go through everything in the Angular tutorial and then come back and work on this, because when I'm trying to do them at the same time, I'm just making more and more and more code, and it's getting more confusing in every file instead of becoming more clear. So that's what I think this weekend will be. Well, hopefully not, but partly it will be. So yeah, that's where I'm at with my app. I'm gonna take you guys back to so yeah, mad, sad, glad. Mad that I wasn't able to get the post request. I kind of felt like it wouldn't be that far of a leap between the getting and the posting. But clearly, for me at least, it was. My sad, I don't know, I guess I was mean to people this week, so I'm sorry for anyone. Well, Brian, you can shake your head because I didn't talk to you. But I would like to make a formal apology to Darian and maybe Emily. So yes, I'm sorry if I was mean to you. I was in a bad mood and misery loves company. It's really not directed at you or any of you in any way. And my glad, well, I'm glad I got to code a bit with Emily. That was pretty sweet. We got the camera working from Rob's tutorial, although I really did mainly copy and paste the code, so can't say that I understood it, but it was cool to get to work with you. Got to talk to Jake a bit more this week, and AJ, which was nice, and I'm really stoked. I'm doing my first half tomorrow because of Faye. Phenomenal. So yeah, I'm really, really stoked about that, and that would be, I guess, my major glad.
Excellent.
Question?
Yeah, so maybe I'll get you to touch a little bit more on something that particularly you felt you had a growing pain with this week, or was a little
okay, so definitely the post requests.
Yeah.
I really don't know what was going on there. So if we look at my code, you can see, like, so this is the little thing where I'm, like, telling it to a pop-up that can save it, right? Yeah. So I'm saying it's a file, and the way that in Jeff's tutorial, the way that we did it was we used Multer, and so I thought that there'd be, like, an easy way to be like, Multer this, like, it's different.
Yeah.
That wasn't the case. I don't know why. And when I put in text as well, it will define both, like, my inputs, like, it'll be an array of, like, stuff with text, but when I pass it, and what I thought I was doing was passing it here, because I'm, like, sending it this data, and I was doing it here.
Okay.
But it's not, it's reading it as undefined, so it's not saving it.
Okay.
And then when I go to do my post request, which who knows where that is now? No. So anyways, I can't show you right now because I don't know, I've, like, mangled this code. And same with here, I don't know why this state.params.photo ID, based on all of the logic of how state params works, that should append the number.
There's also route params, which was briefly touched on in the code.
I've used, but so I decided to use state params because they use state params in this default, like the template that I used for friends, and the friends got numbered in a similar fashion as I wanted to number the photos. So I wanted to use, because I'm not using routes like to a new page, which I would think is what routing is, I want to go to different states.
Yeah.
And so, like, the state is, means that that tab bar will still be on the bottom.
Okay.
So I used state params instead of root params just because it was following, like, going with the flow of the template that I was using.
Yeah.
I did try to use root param, and it didn't change it. Like the problem is this definition, and for whatever reason when I do it on my page, which would be here, now you guys get to see like my brain of confusion. So here it defines it, like you can see it in my, it makes that alright. So I think it's my scope that's the issue, is that like this is scoped properly, it defines it, but when I go, no, that's my internet. That's something more different. When I do it here, and of course I can't find, in my app.js I define it as well. Here. So I use this as like, I had this as photo ID, so something like this. And so like these two things are working. Like it's saying like it's gonna go here, it's sending it there, but for whatever reason when I'm using it in my controller, and that's I think the problem with the scoping, it's not defining it.
The thing is it's supposed to be, we can probably talk about this later, but like as soon as you put that information down there and the user clicks on it, like that is, in my mind, it's kind of set in stone because it's in that browser URL and that's what the states are looking for.
So then that should be a root, like it's a page? Is that what you're saying?
No, I'm saying that URL is just basically telling it that, hey, when you call state params, that's the variable name for the end of this line.
Which is what I want.
Yeah. I'm confused on why it's not working as well.
Oh, good, me too. Okay, and see, and then I thought maybe my, like, the beef was on, like, my API side. So I then checked here, and if I do, like, dash photo dash, like, 4, it gives me the JSON. So, like, it's not that it's just being a bread. Like, I don't know where, like, it's just that that's not getting defined, but I don't know, like, so that's why I'm doing this Angular tutorial, because, like, it's something where, like, I think I just need to, like, maybe I need to say, like, $scope equals, like, num++ or something, like, just, like, it's there, I just don't know where. But yeah, if you have time this afternoon and you want to sit down with me for, like, 10 minutes, maybe I can get into your brain and you can help me. Please.